Your cat is not actually a pet. It is a highly specialized, desert-dwelling predator that has successfully infiltrated your home without making a single biological compromise. Why does this creature, which still possesses the exact skeletal structure and killing instincts of a solitary wildcat, spend its afternoons sleeping on your laundry? How did a species that never learned to hunt in packs or follow a leader convince the most dominant animal on the planet to provide it with free housing and gourmet meals? Is it possible that we didn't domesticate cats at all, but rather, they simply decided that human civilization was a resource worth exploiting? To understand the mystery of the cat, we have to look past the fur and the purring and examine a genetic history that is unlike any other animal we've ever invited into our lives. The answer begins with a startling biological reality uncovered by modern genetics. In 2007, a massive study led by Dr. Carlos Driscoll of the National Cancer Institute analyzed the DNA of nearly 1,000 cats from across the globe. He was looking for the precise ancestor of the domestic cat, and what he found changed our entire understanding of their history. Every single house cat on Earth, from the sleek Siamese to the fluffiest tabby, is a direct descendant of Felis libica, the African wildcat. But here is the strange part. When researchers compared the genomes of these wild predators to the cat sitting on your sofa, they found something almost unheard of in the history of domestication. There is virtually no difference between them. While dogs have been reshaped into hundreds of specialized breeds with massive genetic shifts from wolves, the domestic cat remains genetically nearly identical to its wild ancestors. But why would a wild animal remain so unchanged while living in our homes for thousands of years? The reason lies in a concept called self-domestication. Most animals were forced into human service. We caught horses and broke them. We took wolf pups and bred them for obedience over thousands of generations. But there is no evidence that humans ever went out into the desert to capture wildcats for the purpose of taming them. Why would we? 10,000 years ago, a wildcat was a small, aggressive, solitary hunter that avoided humans at all costs. It offered no meat, no wool, and no labor. Yet, archaeological evidence tells us that around 9,500 years ago, a human was buried in a village called Shilarokambos on the island of Cyprus. In a small pit just inches away, archaeologists found the complete skeleton of a cat. This wasn't a wild animal that accidentally fell into a grave. It was intentionally buried with a person. But how did a desert cat get to an island in the Mediterranean in the first place? It had to have been brought there by boat. This discovery by researcher Jean-Denis Vigna suggests that the relationship between humans and cats is thousands of years older than we once thought. It predates the Egyptian pyramids by more than 5 millennia. The shift likely started when humans invented agriculture in the Fertile Crescent. When our ancestors stopped moving and started building permanent granaries, they inadvertently created a brand new ecosystem. Stored grain attracted rodents in numbers the world had never seen before. To a wildcat, a human village wasn't a place of community, it was a concentrated, high-density hunting ground. The cats that were slightly less afraid of humans, the ones with a lower flight distance, thrived. They ate the mice, survived the winters, and passed their tolerance genes onto the next generation. But if they were just there for the mice, why did we start letting them inside? The humans of the Neolithic era weren't looking for companions. They were looking for survival. A single pair of rats can produce hundreds of offspring in a year, and those rodents could easily destroy a village's entire winter food supply. The cats weren't just cute, they were biological security systems. However, even as we began to appreciate their presence, we never actually bred them for specific tasks. While we were busy creating greyhounds for speed and border collies for herding, we left cats exactly as they were. This lack of human-led breeding is why your cat is still essentially a wild animal in a domestic setting. But does this lack of change mean that cats didn't adapt to us at all? Actually, the adaptations they did make were far more subtle and sophisticated than a change in coat color or ear shape. In 2014, a team of scientists led by Wesley Warren at the Washington University School of Medicine completed the first high-quality map of the domestic cat genome. They compared it to the DNA of humans, dogs, and wildcats. What they found was fascinating. The primary genetic differences between a house cat and a wild cat are located in areas of the brain responsible for memory, fear, and reward-seeking behavior. Specifically, domestic cats show changes in their neural crest cells, which are stem cells that play a massive role in the development of the adrenal glands and the sympathetic nervous system. By slightly dampening their fear response and increasing their sensitivity to rewards, cats were able to tolerate the constant noise and presence of human beings. But does a lack of fear mean they actually like us, or are they just playing a much longer game? This brings us to the second massive wave of cat expansion, which happened in ancient Egypt. By roughly 3,000 years ago, cats had moved from being tolerated outdoor pest control to being revered household icons. The Egyptians didn't just appreciate cats, they obsessed over them. They mummified them by the millions. A 2017 study by Drive Claudio Ottoni, published in Nature Ecology and Evolution, tracked the mitochondrial DNA of over 200 ancient cats spanning 9,000 years. His team discovered that a specific genetic lineage from Egypt began to spread across the Mediterranean and into the rest of the world at an incredible speed. These Egyptian cats were likely favored because they were even more sociable than their Near Eastern cousins. They traveled on Roman trade ships and Viking vessels, protecting the crew's rations from rats on long voyages. But why did sailors and pharaohs alike find these animals so irresistible compared to other predators? The answer might lie in a form of psychological manipulation that cats evolved specifically to target the human brain. Dr. Karen McComb of the University of Sussex conducted a groundbreaking study in 2009 on the solicitation purr. She discovered that when cats want food, they don't just purr. They embed a high-frequency cry within the low-frequency rumble. This cry falls between 300 and 600 Hz, which is the exact same frequency range as a human infant's distress call. When a cat uses this specific purr, it triggers a deep, instinctual nurturing response in our brains. It is a sound that is nearly impossible for a human to ignore. But if they can manipulate us with sound, what else are they doing to our biology to ensure their survival? Some scientists believe the connection goes even deeper than sound. It might involve a literal hijacking of our neurochemistry. You may have heard of Toxoplasma gondii, a microscopic parasite that can only sexually reproduce in the gut of a cat. To get there, the parasite infects rodents and physically rewires their brains. It removes their innate fear of cat urine and replaces it with a strange, fatal attraction. Infected rats don't run away from cats. They run toward them, ensuring the parasite returns to its host. Here is the unsettling part. Researchers like Jaroslav Flager have spent decades studying how this parasite affects human behavior. While the results are still debated, some studies suggest that humans infected with Toxoplasma show increased levels of dopamine and altered personality traits, potentially making them more attracted to and protective of cats. Could it be that our devotion to these animals is, in part, a side effect of a parasitic biological cycle? Beyond the potential for biological hijacking, we have to look at the physical mechanics of why cats stayed. Unlike dogs, which are social animals that require a pack structure to feel secure, cats are solitary hunters. In the wild, a cat that gets injured is a cat that dies. Because they have no pack to protect them while they heal, they have evolved to be the ultimate masters of risk assessment. This is why your cat is so obsessed with high places and hidden corners. They are constantly scanning their environment for threats that no longer exist in a modern apartment. But this solitary nature created a unique challenge for domestication. How do you live with an animal that doesn't care about your approval? In a dog's brain, the reward center lights up when they receive praise from a human leader. In a cat's brain, the reward center is largely tied to their own successful hunting and territorial security. This means that cats don't view us as masters in the traditional sense. A famous study by Dr. John Bradshaw, a world-renowned anthrozoologist, suggests that cats likely perceive us as non-hostile, large, clumsy cats. When your cat rubs its face against your leg, it isn't just an act of love, it is an act of allarubbing, a social behavior used by wildcat colonies to create a communal scent. They are marking you as part of their territory. When they bring you a dead mouse, they aren't bringing you a gift. They are likely trying to teach a clumsy kitten how to hunt, or simply bringing their prey back to a safe, core territory to eat later. But if they don't see us as leaders, why do they stay? They stay because they have mastered the art of the biological trade. In the wild, a cat spends up to 80% of its day in a state of light sleep to conserve energy for the high-intensity burst of a hunt. By moving into our homes, they have essentially retired from the dangerous parts of nature while keeping all the perks of their predatory hardware. But this transition has created a strange biological paradox. Your house cat has the same hypersensitive hearing that can detect the ultrasonic squeaks of a mouse, yet they use it to hear a can of tuna opening 3 rooms away. They have night vision that can see in 1/6 the light required for a human, yet they use it to navigate the hallway to their litter box. They are a Ferrari being driven in a school zone. But does this mismatch between their nature and their environment cause them stress? Actually, the domestication of cats has revealed something surprising about the flexibility of the predatory brain. While they are solitary hunters, they are not strictly solitary animals. In areas with high food density, like an ancient Egyptian city or a modern suburban neighborhood, cats form complex social structures called colonies. They are capable of a high degree of social learning, but only when they choose to. This voluntary sociality is what makes the bond with a cat feel so different from the bond with a dog. A dog's love is a biological mandate. It is baked into their evolutionary contract. A cat's presence, however, always feels like a choice. Because they don't need us to survive in a social sense, every moment they spend sitting on our laps is a moment they have decided to grant us. But is this choice really as simple as it seems? The latest research suggests that cats have actually developed a specialized vocabulary just for us. In the wild, adult cats almost never meow at each other. Meowing is a behavior reserved for kittens to communicate with their mothers. Once a wild cat reaches adulthood, they switch to scent, body language, and subtle vocalizations like hisses or growls. However, domestic cats have realized that humans are completely scent-blind and terrible at reading subtle ear twitches. To get our attention, they have re-evolved the meow, extending a kitten-like behavior into adulthood specifically to communicate with the large, bipedal apes they live with. Each cat and its owner often develop a unique, secret language of chirps and meows that are specific to that household. But why would a solitary killer go to the trouble of inventing a language for another species? The answer might be more about us than it is about them. Humans have a psychological need to be chosen. In a world where we control almost every aspect of our environment, the cat remains a variable. They are a piece of the wild that we have invited to live among our expensive furniture. When a cat chooses to interact with us, it provides a sense of validation that a more obedient animal cannot. We have built our entire modern world on the idea of domination over nature, but the cat is the one animal that refuses to play by those rules. They have survived the rise and fall of civilizations, the transition from the Bronze Age to the Information Age, and they have done it without changing their DNA, without losing their instincts, and without ever acknowledging us as their superiors. But how did this partnership of equals survive the darkest periods of human history? It wasn't always easy. During the Middle Ages in Europe, the cat's independent nature and nocturnal habits led to a period of intense persecution. They were associated with the supernatural and were often killed in large numbers. Ironically, this human-led culling of cats is believed by many historians to have contributed to the severity of the Black Death. Without enough cats to keep the rat populations in check, the plague-carrying fleas were able to spread through cities with terrifying speed. We learned the hard way that our survival was tied to theirs. Once the Enlightenment arrived and our understanding of biology improved, the cat was welcomed back, not just as a worker, but as a muse. From the salons of Paris to the writing desks of Mark Twain and Ernest Hemingway, the cat became a symbol of the creative, independent spirit. But what does their current status tell us about the future of our relationship? Today, the cat is the most popular pet in the world, outnumbering dogs in many countries. As we move into increasingly urbanized, high-stress environments, the cat's low-maintenance independence has made them the perfect companions for the modern age. We no longer need them to catch mice, but we desperately need them for something else. In an era of constant digital noise, The presence of an animal that can sit in perfect silence for 4 hours staring at a sunbeam is a form of therapy. Their purr doesn't just sound soothing. Research shows that the vibration frequency of a cat's purr, between 25 and 150 Hz, can actually improve bone density and speed the healing of tendons and muscles. We have moved from a relationship of pest control to a relationship of stress control. But as we continue to breed them for aesthetics, are we finally starting to change what a cat actually is? In the last century, we have finally started to do to cats what we did to dogs. We have created breeds like the Persian, the Espanx, and the Munchkin. We are beginning to select for physical traits that would make survival in the wild impossible. This is the first time in 10,000 years that the domestic cat's biological independence has been truly threatened. For the first time, we are creating cats that need us. But even in these highly bred varieties, the brain of the wild cat still lurks just beneath the surface. If you take the most pampered house cat and put it in a field, the ancient hunting programs in its brain will still execute with terrifying precision. They are the only animal that can transition from human infant substitute to lethal apex predator in a fraction of a second. But why are we so comfortable with that duality? Perhaps it's because cats provide us with a mirror for our own lost wildness. As humans, we have domesticated ourselves. We live in boxes, we follow schedules, and we have suppressed many of our own ancient instincts to fit into a cooperative society. The cat is a reminder of a different way of living. They are in our world, but they are not of it. They accept our affection, but they do not require it. They share our beds, but they keep their secrets. This brings us to a fundamental question about the nature of our dominance over the animal kingdom. If a species can get all the benefits of a civilization without paying the price of its freedom, who is really the master? This brings us to the final reveal of the cat's 10,000-year journey. When we look at the history of domestication, we usually see a story of human triumph, the story of how we conquered the wild. But the cat tells a different story. It's the story of a predator that found a niche in our waste, exploited our instincts, and successfully colonized our homes while remaining almost entirely unchanged. They didn't go from wild hunters to house pets because we wanted them to. They did it because it was a better deal for them. They are the only animal that has successfully negotiated a contract with humanity where they provide nothing but their presence, and in exchange, we provide everything. But is that presence enough to justify the deal? Think about the way you interact with your cat compared to any other animal. You don't tell a cat what to do, you ask. You don't own a cat, you live with one. Every time you clean a litter box or buy a bag of expensive food, you are participating in a biological arrangement that began in a Neolithic grain store 100 centuries ago. The cat has stayed the same while we have changed everything about the way we live. We built cities, invented electricity, and traveled to the moon, and through all of it, the cat has just sat there, watching us with the same golden eyes that watched the first farmers in the Middle East. They are a constant in a changing world. But what does that say about us? It says that for all our technology and all our control, we are still deeply wired to respond to the wild. We need that connection to something that doesn't care about our social status or our bank accounts. We need an animal that will look at us and see, not a king, but a large, clumsy cat that happens to have a can opener. The cat's journey into our homes wasn't a loss of their wildness, it was an expansion of it. They have turned our living rooms into their territories and our laps into their heat sources. And we haven't just allowed it, we've celebrated it. The reality of your relationship with your cat is far more complex than simple companionship. You are living with a biological enigma, a creature that has mastered the human psyche so thoroughly that it can bypass your logic and speak directly to your ancient instincts. They are the ultimate free riders of the animal kingdom, and they have earned that position through 10,000 years of perfect, patient observation. They didn't need to change their DNA to survive the modern world. They only needed to change ours. Look at that animal again. Really look at it. You think you've brought a piece of nature into your home to keep you company, but you've actually done something far more radical. You have invited a specialized killing machine to live in your most intimate spaces, and you have agreed to pay for the privilege. You provide the food, you provide the shelter, and you provide the affection, all while the cat reserves the right to walk away the moment it gets bored. In the grand timeline of evolution, humans are the ones who have been domesticated by the arrangement, and the cat is simply the one who manages the estate. You aren't the owner of a pet, you are the primary caretaker for a wild animal that has decided you are useful enough to keep around. And the most unsettling part is that you wouldn't have it any other way. You don't own your cat owns the very concept of your home, and you're just the one who pays the mortgage.